Hey everyone, welcome to the Independent Surfer. Today we're going to break down some of the surfing that went down at Don Don the other day, which is a break that we basically live at here in Indonesia. So we kind of went out with a bunch of our friends and we took a bunch of these videos of them, and now we're going to tear them apart by ripping into their style. Just joking. We're actually going to give them some really good constructive feedback. So if you're interested in learning how to surf, or you want to gain an extra tip or two, just pay attention or stay tuned to this channel, because we're going to go over some different disciplines of surfing, some longboarding, some kind of like in-between surfing, and then also shortboarding, and break it all down. So let's get right into it. In this first video, we have a good friend of ours, Spella, and she's actually riding a longboard. Just as a disclaimer, I don't longboard too often. I can kind of do it. I'm not great at it, but I feel like I do understand the fundamentals of what needs to happen. And so we'll just break down the fundamentals, and hopefully this will help you with your surfing as well. Let's get into this. So here Spella's paddling in, she's up and riding, and now she's turned down the line. Now, just before we actually get into what she's doing, the most important thing with surfing is that when you're paddling into a wave, your awareness is not here. So a lot of people, they get stuck with their awareness just straight in front of them, and this we call having the blinders on, like a horse in a horse race. And so all they see is the finish line. And if you're stuck like this, you're not really paying attention to what the wave's doing, you're not paying attention to who's around you, and you're not paying attention to what's happening down the line, and that's kind of where you want to go next. So everything you do becomes a reaction instead of an action. Okay, so let's go back to where Spella kind of paddles to this wave here. You can see she's looking up, and then as she's kind of looking up what's going on in front of her. And ideally, she wants to be looking down the line at the other surfers. And I mean, not necessarily at the other surfers, but just down the line to see what's happening so that she can act instead of react. Cool, so we'll move ahead here. She's up and riding, and you can see as she gets up, and we'll slow-mo this for you hopefully if my editing skills are good enough. But when she gets up, there's a slight moment there where she's paying attention to what's happening at the front of her board. And then once she's up and riding, now she's looking down the line, which is great. But again, you want to be looking down the line the whole time so that you're acting instead of reacting. So she does super well to bottom turn here. She doesn't go super deep down, which is kind of like, you know, as a longboarder, you kind of don't want to be taking these huge bottom turns. Now, ideally, you want to be getting up at the top of the wave nice and early, especially at a wave like this that has a nice long wall. Get up at the top of the wave, put a lot of back foot pressure, and start to walk to the front of the nose, because this is where you're going to get that opportunity to do that, especially on this wave, which you'll see. It doesn't offer much of that opportunity down the line. Now, the reason you want to do that is because if you gain too much speed, and if your back of your board isn't sitting in the back of the water, or sorry, sitting in the water at the lip line and having that lip either fall over it or the back of the board kind of like sitting in the wave, you're not going to be able to walk to the front, because the curve of the board is going to be in the wave instead of the board sticking out the wave, while the back of the wave leverages the board down. Okay, and I know it's a little hard to understand, and maybe you might not be getting me right now, but if you think about it, eventually it starts to make sense. Anyways, so Spella's only been surfing for less than a year now, so she's doing amazingly, and let's take nothing away from how well she's doing with this wave. She gets up in a good body position, she's turning the board really quickly, and she's getting down the line, which is pretty much the goal. You don't want to be ending up going to the bottom of the wave, losing all your speed at the bottom of the wave, and then the wave is kind of finished. Alright, so let's get back into her video. She's up, down the line, and as soon as she gets up and looks down the line, she has a slight extension in the body. And now this is to help her get back up to the top of the wave. You're going to be doing this for multiple reasons. One, you could be doing this because you want to set up to do a turn, or two, you could be doing this because you want to take the high line or the A line and get down the line as quick as you can because the wave might be rushing ahead of you. Now in this case, the wave isn't really running too far ahead of her, and ideally, again, from the beginning, from the get-go, she wanted to be getting up at the top of the wave, putting a lot of pressure on that back foot, and then starting to walk to the nose. Throughout this wave, she's pretty stagnant in where she's standing. Now the difference between longboarding and shortboarding is that longboarding requires a lot of lower body movement, so you're walking up and down the board a lot, whereas shortboarding requires a lot of upper body movement. You're rotating your arms, your head, and your hips. Now when you're on a longboard again versus a shortboard, you're going to be standing in the same place all the time, and so you're going to be leaning on the back foot and leaning on the front foot. Whereas again, to distribute that weight on a longboard, you're going to be moving up and down the board, so shuffling forward to put weight to the front to trim or to gain speed, or to nose ride, and then shuffling back all the way back to the tail, and then putting as much weight as you can on the back of the board to help turn. And the reason is because a longboard is a huge board. Now imagine trying to turn a truck versus turning a Ferrari. Okay, so truck's going to turn, it's going to be really hard and you have to put a lot of effort, whereas a Ferrari will turn super easy. And again, the comparison here is the longboard is the truck and the Ferrari is the shortboard. So just to get into a little bit of that so you understand. So she does well to get down the line here. She has a very nice style. Good back knee inversion, which is key for rotating the hips and just adds to good style. If you see all the good surfers out there, they all have great knee inversion. Next here, she's setting up for her first turn. Now again, if we look at her feet placement, her feet are kind of placed towards the center of the board. And it's super important that when you want to turn, you need to be shuffling back so that you place your feet towards the back of the board so you can put enough back foot pressure or pressure on the back of the board to help pivot that big longboard. Remember, it's that hot truck. It's super hard to turn. Okay, so that's one thing Spella could do better here, is just to shuffle back when she wants to turn and shuffle forward when she wants to trim, gain speed, or walk to the nose. And that's for all you longboarders out there. That's kind of what you want to be doing. So yeah, she manages to turn back, which is great, super good, and another turn in there, all the way back to the whitewater. And at the end here, you can see she kind of falls over as she's trying to lean over onto that toe rail at the end. She's having a bit of a wobble, and so the reason why she's falling off the board and finding it hard to turn is because she hasn't got enough pressure towards the back of the board when she leans in on that rail, plus having her body weight, her center of gravity super high because she has her arms raised. She's leaning over with the chest and leaning over on the toes. There's no knee inversion. She's quite side on, and so she has all her weight on one side of the board, and she's not counterweighting with any other part of her body, which is causing her to fall over to one side. So regardless of whether you're a shortboarder or a longboarder, it's really important to make sure that you're weighting and counterweighting, and that counterweight is going to help you not fall over. If you found this helpful, please like and subscribe. And if you have any things that you're working on or anything that you would like to hear about in these videos, just leave it in the comment section down below and we'll do our best to address those things that may need work. Then in the next video, we'll probably go over somebody who's riding a mid-length board. So we start with the long board, then we'll kind of move down a little bit to the mid-length and then go down to a short board. And we'll break them all down so that you can kind of get an understanding of how boards are meant to be surfed, and just in general what mistakes people make, and how you can be better if you're making those mistakes as well. Thanks for listening. Bye.